You ever have one of those days where the universe seems to single you out for a lesson? Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. Picture this. I'm standing on my own porch in Mesa, Arizona, hands full of tools, trying to get a new keypad lock set up so my family could sleep a little easier at night when out of nowhere, Lorraine Pritchard, my neighbor and the self-appointed queen of the HOA, comes strutting up the sidewalk like she owns the whole block. She doesn't knock, doesn't say hello, just grabs my front door handle, gives it a jiggle, then fixes me with this look like I'm a porch pirate caught red-handed. Now, if you've ever dealt with HOA folks like Lorraine, you know the type rules are life, and God help you if you forget to edge your grass. But I swear, nothing prepares you for seeing your own neighbor try to break into your house then call the cops on you for it. And not just any neighbor, someone you've loaned jumper cables to, someone your wife brought soup to when she was sick. So when Lorraine pulled out her phone and started tapping 911, it felt surreal, like watching her life on TV. Inside, my wife Charlotte peeks through the blinds. Eyes wide, what's going on out there? Lorraine just snaps back, HOA business, as if that's all the explanation you need when you're trespassing. My stomach was in knots, but I wasn't angry, not yet. More embarrassed, honestly. Half the block was watching. Now kids stopped biking. Neighbors came out, and you could almost feel the weight of their judgment, like you're the punchline in a joke you didn't ask to be part of. I tried reasoning with Lorraine. You've known me for years. You've seen me mow this lawn every weekend. What are you doing? She just shrugs, says she's following procedure. Be too careful. And right then, she presses call, tells the dispatcher there's a suspicious man at my address trying to break in. I muttered, this is absurd. Charlotte came outside, arms crossed, and said, if you think we don't belong here, you've lost your mind. But Lorraine's finger was glued to her phone, acting like she's defending the Alamo. Honestly, it was humiliating standing on my own porch, suddenly on trial, my whole life up for a vote in front of people who've borrowed my tools and waved at me for years. And the worst part? I knew deep down that nothing I said would matter until someone with a badge showed up. That's when things get real. What Lorraine didn't know, and I sure wasn't about to tell her, was that the deputy on call that day wasn't just any cop. It was my son, Julian. So here we are, standing in the spotlight. Lorraine with her phone, me trying not to lose it, neighbors craning their necks, Charlotte fuming. Then the cruiser turns the corner, lights glinting off the windshield, and the whole block gets quieter than a funeral home. Julian steps out in full uniform, tall, steady, all business, then spots me and blinks, that flicker of disbelief passing over his face. Dad, you should have seen Lorraine's face, like she just bit into a lemon, eyes darting between me and my son, her grip tightening on her purse. Julian keeps it professional. I got a call about a suspicious person, didn't expect it to be my own father. Charlotte just shakes her head, muttering something under her breath. The crowd starts whispering, that's his son. And you can feel the air shift, curiosity turning to something stickier, like shame. Julian looks Lorraine in the eye and says, ma'am, this isn't suspicious activity. This is a homeowner standing on his own porch. Lorraine tries to recover, talking about neighborhood safety, responsibility, all Thatch clinging to the last bits of her dignity like it's a life preserver. But Julian cuts her off. Your job is to enforce rules fairly, not to call the police on a man you've known for years just because you convinced yourself he didn't belong. People started to murmur, and for the first time, Lorraine looked, well, small, deflated. Mrs. Callahan, the neighbor 2 doors down, piped up, said she'd seen the whole thing, told Lorraine she crossed the line. That cracked the ice. Folks who'd just been watching before started to speak up. Even Mr. Johnson, who'd spent the afternoon leaning on his mailbox like he was watching Netflix, started shaking his head. You know what's wild? The humiliation, for a moment, wasn't mine, Anna Maria, it was Lorraine's. She stood there, clutching her sunglasses, no words left, while Julian calmly explained that calling 911 because you weren't sure could have gone bad real belief someone else had shown up. He was right. The crowd got quiet again, And all of a sudden, everyone was thinking about what could have happened if things had been just a little different. But Lorraine, being Lorraine, tried one last time. I thought I was doing what's best for the community. Charlotte fired back. Best for who? Not for us. I stepped closer, my voice low, so only she and Julian could hear. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? For a second, I thought she might finally get it. But old habits die hard. She said, if something had been wrong and I hadn't acted, people would be blaming me. Mrs. Callahan spoke up again. We all saw it, Lorraine. You grabbed his door. You treated him like he didn't belong. That got nods from a few others. Julian laid it out. This isn't just about rules. It's about respect. If people can't feel safe in their own homes, what kind of neighborhood do we have? After a long silence, Lorraine finally apologized, sort of. It wasn't enough, but it was something. She stood there, all her authority gone, and I said, don't apologize to me, apologize to everyone who had to watch this circus. That was that. The crowd started to thin. Julian told me he had to file a report, standard procedure. I said, let her think about what she did that'll last longer than paperwork. Inside, Charlotte handed me a glass of water. You handled yourself, she said. I shook my head. I don't know if that's strength or just being tired. But she squeezed my hand, said, maybe it's both. You know, by sunrise, the story was everywhere. Kids called out, your son's a cop? That was crazy last night. The adults, though they had that look like they'd seen behind the curtain and weren't sure what to do with what they found. At the next HOA meeting, Lorraine tried to spin it as a misunderstanding until Mrs. Callahan stood up, said what everyone was thinking. You treated Anthony like he didn't belong. That's not protection. That's prejudice. You could have heard a pin drop. Mr. Johnson spoke up, too, saying concern doesn't explain why you call the cops instead of knocking on a door. In the end, Lorraine admitted she overreacted, misjudged. I stood and told the whole room. One keypad lock, and suddenly I'm a stranger in my own home. That's not a mistake. That's a mindset. There was some applause, tentative at first, then louder. Not everyone was won over, but I'll tell you, something in that room changed. Afterwards, neighbors started stopping by more, offering fruit, saying they wished they'd spoken up sooner. Lorraine came by, too, this time, sunglasses off, voice quiet. She said she let fear and control guide her, and she was sorry not just to me, but to my family. I told her I didn't need perfect neighbors, just honest ones. She nodded, turned, and walked home not beaten, but changed. Maybe. That night, sitting on the porch, Charlotte beside me, the keypad lock glowing faintly in the dark, I thought about trust, how it's so easy to break and so hard to rebuild. I realized the story didn't just belong to me, Anna Maria, it belonged to every person on that street who saw what happens when silence meets truth. So yeah, that happened. And if there's one thing I hope people take away from all this, it's simple: ask before you assume, respect before you accuse, and remember that every house you see is someone's story, someone's home. Now, tell me, have you ever seen a neighbor cross the line? What would you have done in my shoes? Drop your take below, because trust me, everyone's got an opinion when it comes to what justice really looks like on your own front porch.